From Studio 1A in Tampa, Florida, comes a talk show that really feels your pain and tells you like it is. We love America and all that freedom-loving Americans want to protect. Live from coast to coast and on your radio, it's For the People with Keith Allen.
We'll help you survive this thing called life. We're for the people. Whatever your source of stress or strife, for the people is there.
Yes, it is I on a Friday. It's Keith Allen, and you're tuned to For the People. I got to tell you, writing a book is not the easiest thing to do, especially if you're not a prolific writer. But I have always had a lot to say. Some of you are the same way. And it's being able to articulate that in a meaningful way, in a way that doesn't put people to sleep when you're writing a book. And the worst thing you can do is do that. But I'm learning a lot because I'm researching a lot. And obviously that's something that you do when you write a book out. But I lived through a lot when it came to knowing Chuck Harder, working with Chuck at the network, and finally taking over the broadcast of For the People and all that involved. And I got to tell you, it's stressful. I guess that's a good way of putting it. Stressful because of the enormity. When you're following in the footsteps of a man who was the second, third most listened to man, literally, in the country, and people listen to Chuck all over the world, and I was blown away, literally, by the amount of people that tuned in for the tribute show that we put together. And I got to tell you, that's a great show, and if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to the tribute show to Chuck Harder, you can find it on our player online at forthepeopleshow.com. 5 stellar guests, including Stanton Freeman, who was a frequent guest with Chuck, and Chuck on his show with Art Bell. George Norrie was tipped off, and I got to thank George Norrie specifically. He did not have me on his program, and maybe in the near future, maybe I will be. But he had corrected the website, forthepeopleshow.com, on his coast-to-coast website, and I appreciate that. Some people are just learning that we revamped the broadcast some 4 years ago, and I still do have those shows, and what we're working on is making a section available at forthepeopleshow.com where if you'd like to listen to some archive broadcasts, and there's also some radio networks across the country that run vintage Chuck shows Monday through Friday, and really good shows that are still really relevant today, and it's just amazing to hear some of the broadcasts that Chuck did. But it was the cutting-edge stuff that Chuck was able to do back then when nobody was doing it, and without censorship, with a velvet hammer. And the toll that it took on Chuck was unfathomable to see how it destroyed a person. I mean, you put an 18-year audit on anybody, that takes the wind out of your sails. And then your wife gets sick with cancer on top of that. It's just, it was insult to injury. But anyways, the book is being written as we speak, and I wanted to be real open, like an open book to you guys when it came to, my ambition and why I'm doing this book. It's not to make a lot of money by any means. It's whatever profit comes from the book is some is going to go to the Humane Society. Chuck loved animals, and secondly, into the broadcast, into expanding For the People, being able to do a lot more in the future. So that's my ambition as far as the motivation for writing the book is that I believe that this man's story needs to be told because he was a great man. He accomplished so much on the air and with his life, helping people with consumer questions, and that was the heartbeat of Chuck Harder. He lived to help people, loved people. He wasn't perfect, but Chuck really did make a difference profoundly, and he should be inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame for his contributions in talk radio, bar none. He was a marvel, and multiple businesses. He was a man that many people followed and continue to do so. So we'll miss him. But the name of the book will be called Talk Radio at the Telford, The Inside Story of Chuck Harder. And then it goes to say and all the things that Chuck went through with the Clintons, the IRS, and the UAW. So it's going to go in the order of the Clintons, the UAW that took him out, and then the IRS. So between the two, those stories, and Dr. Pat Choate, we're going to get some information from him that's going to lend some credence to the book. Ralph Nader, everybody knows Ralph Nader, consumer advocate, of course, was on Chuck's show dozens and dozens of times through the years, and before anybody even knew who Ralph Nader was. But he was invaluable, and they're going to input into the book as well, and they're around, obviously, and know that I'm doing this project. But, folks, it's a big undertaking. It's huge, and you see that I'm asking for money. It's the book and documentary, to shoot a documentary. You could spend easily $50,000, $100,000 on a documentary. We're going to be doing this on a shoestring budget. We're going to make sure that it's worthwhile to watch, but the book is the main thing. I've talked to some networks, TV networks, about what we're doing because we'd like to make it into a movie or docudrama, something of that sort from the Telford Hotel. But the book, in many respects, is going to serve as they put it, a manuscript for the book, where they can storyboard from the book so they can get into it. But, it's got to be written in such a way because, let's face it, to keep people's attention and get their attention. So it's prowess and it's research. And I have no shortage of being able to cook up words, as you can imagine, being able to run my mouth. I don't need any, Z Morning Zoo people around me to encourage me to continue on talking, because there's always something to talk about and worthwhile. And I hope you like the show, by the way. If you're new to the broadcast and new to this version of For the People, it's not exactly Chuck Harder, and Chuck wanted me to be myself, and that was the advice that he gave anybody that got into talk radio. Be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. Don't pretend to be anybody else other than you, because I say this quite often to people. It's exhausting being anybody else. Just be happy in your own skin. God made you this way, and enjoy it. And there's going to be people that are going to follow, and that's me. What you hear is what you get. It's the real thing. So anyway, I appreciate you. Love my supporters. Love all of you who have made a donation. Some of you have just knocked me out. I had a gentleman that gave $100 4 or 5 days ago. You know who you are. Thank you. $25, $10, $1, whatever it is, to make that meter go up at forthepeopleshow.com. I was hoping, because of the tribute broadcast, that we were going to be able to generate a little bit more money than that, but we haven't even come up to $300 yet. And it's $7,500 we're trying to raise for a book and a documentary. And, travel and research and copying and editors and all that stuff costs money. And, $7,500 is a shoestring when it comes to these projects, folks. And then, not to mention time, TIME, and that takes a lot of it. And I'm going to do it. The book is going to be done regardless of how much money comes in, and that's probably not a thing to say when you're trying to raise money. But I promise you that the book 100% will be done, whether we raise the $7,500 or we don't. Talk Radio at the Telford will be a work that you'll be able to purchase. So I just want to have this on the record and let you know, and I'll say it again at another time. But if you can pass that along on Facebook, if you want to start a thread and let people know that it will be finished with your contribution, or, because you're going to have to pay for the book. That's just the bottom line. And I'll have autographed copies for you. Yes, there will be pictures in the book, pictures that you've never seen before. Chuck when he was little, Chuck at radio stations, his garage, when he was building Sun Radio Network, just some really neat nostalgic pictures and things that will just make the book come alive. And a good book does that. And I like book. I don't know about you. Kindle, that's all well and good. I like an iPad and I like technology, but me, I like to pick up a book, turn the pages, smell the ink. I'm not getting high off the ink. I just, I like that whole experience. And maybe that's old school. I don't know. Am I old school? I think there's other people out there my age or younger that still like going in. Because listen, if I was wrong about this, then why is it that people go into Barnes and Noble and they're buying books? And they're not just sitting in there drinking coffee, and some people do. And that's a great thing. You don't have to ever buy a book. You just sit in there, come back, pick up your page. And people do that, but they're buying coffee. They're buying something. I don't think you can just go in there and just sit, but maybe you can. They got cameras, so I think they kind of watch out for that kind of thing. All right, so we got some stuff to talk about today. Just wanted to clear up some shop talk, as they say here. Stormy Daniels. There's a name that, the White House wish would just go away. And, when you pay somebody off, and I got to say this, if you pay somebody off to not talk just because of, Weinstein and Bill Cosby and just all these sexual predators, all these deviants that have been in the news, it just, it's hush money is what it's called. And, this is something that is, factual, that they got together and they did something. And you don't just pay somebody off unless something happened. I'm sorry, but, Trump has been married multiple times. He's had multiple women. And that's just one thing that happens when you're rich. And look at the women that Trump has. But this something happened before he was president. And we didn't want that to surface, obviously, when he was running, because then that would have been really terrible. That would have been a big thorn. So, yeah, please just be quiet right now. And it was extortion. It wasn't a great thing. But now this is very interesting. The bombshell, the Stormy Daniels lawyer who tweeted bombshell allegations this week against Trump's attorney Michael Cohen, is now facing questions himself about his own business dealings, as well as how he obtained Cohen's bank records. So since Michael Aviante cited financial records to accuse Cohen of receiving the $500,000 from a Russian oligarch-tied company, and other media outlets detailed and other transactions, a frenzy, as what they're calling it now, has erupted over Cohen's dealings at the dawn of the Trump administration. So records suggest, this is it, Cohen's firm was paid huge sums for insight into the Trump administration. But it gets worse. AT&T and pharmaceutical giants, Novartis, both of which paid Cohen's firm, said this week that they had been questioned by special counsel Robert Mueller's team about their relationship with him, and the lawyer is under investigation in part over a $130,000 payment in Daniels' exchange for her silence about an alleged sexual encounter with President Trump a decade ago. But Aviante has also faced scrutiny over his business dealings, and recently a complaint was filed against him in the California State Bar Association regarding his role purchasing Tully's coffee several years ago through an entity called Global Baristas. So, and there's this Russia money dealings with the attorney, with getting paid, and so this is got a interesting. Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse. And now we have this with the attorney, but this is going to backfire on the attorneys, of course. And I believe that Donald Trump will be able to get out of this one, clearly. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we're not talking, by the way, Bill Cosby, date rape. He was raping the people. There's a big difference between two consensual adults that are having sex and then somebody that's doping, and I just got to clarify that. Sexual deviant. Donald Trump, this was consensual. He wasn't